Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for being here today. My name is Ryan Daly, and I am the SVP of Consumer Product at Dow Jones. Today, I want to talk to you about something that's been gaining momentum in the publishing world, AI-generated summaries. So some people see this as disruptive. Others see it as exciting. Most, including myself, have just a lot of questions. But certainly we at Dow Jones saw this as an opportunity, not necessarily to chase a trend, but really to explore how this technology might help us serve our readers better, especially in a world where their time is more limited and their information needs are more complex, really, than ever. So instead of resisting it or rushing headfirst, we did something simple. We leaned in with curiosity and we asked, what happens when we explore this shift with care? And what we found was not just reassuring, but it was really an energizing moment for the team. With that in mind, let's start with what's already true. Summaries are everywhere. They're no longer the next thing. They're no longer a shiny object. They're here now and to stay. Amazon summarizes reviews. Google uses them in featured snippets. ChatGPT can give you one in less than a second on any topic. Summaries, they show up in your inbox, your app notifications, even your smart speakers. So this isn't something audiences are waiting for. It's something they really have come to expect. And for good reason. Today's readers are balancing more complexity and access to information than ever. So really, when thinking through this wasn't just a product decision, it was a strategic one. We could ignore summarization entirely. And if we did that, we would risk falling behind entirely, offering users an experience that no longer met their expectations. But if we move too quickly and without thought and without care, we risk flattening what makes our journalism unique. Of course, when we first started to explore this idea, we had our own concerns, myself included, and I think they were very valid ones. One of the biggest concerns was if we show a summary at the top of the article, won't readers just stop there and potentially even leave? And here's the thought logic behind that. You show readers a summary on the top of the article, they get what they need, they skip the article, they spend less time on site, and ultimately, potentially, higher subscriber churn. And we thought this to date because to date, many of our success metrics have focused on engagement. So things like time on page or total time spent with our products or articles per session or scroll depth. And it's natural to worry if we offer something shorter, will readers stop going deeper? But instead of seeing that as a blocker, we really treated it as a starting point. It helped us shape a smarter approach, one rooted in curiosity, not necessarily caution. So to test, to learn, to build thoughtfully, and to really explore how summarization could support our mission without compromising it. And that's the path that led us to some surprising and inspiring results. So we approached this, again, not to prove a point, but really to get real answers. And our test question was very simple. What do AI-powered summaries do to user engagement? We weren't trying to confirm our hopes and dreams. We were open to really whatever the data showed us. And that's the value inherent in testing. It transforms some of those assumptions you might have into actual insights. It helps us make progress incrementally grounded in reality. We also knew that how we introduced summaries mattered just as much as whether we did. So we didn't just flip a switch. We made sure that we were building the right safeguards in place. So first and foremost, our newsroom and data science team partnered extremely closely together and through multiple iterations before landing on a prompt that matched our standards. The summaries themselves, the format, were presented in a bullet format, clear, structured, and helpful for scanning. And probably most importantly, every single summary was reviewed by a human editor before going live. So editors could rewrite, refine, or remove them entirely. And as you see on the screen, this functionality was actually integrated directly into our content management system, which is what you see. This helped us ensure that adoption was easy, and it was contextually paired with the original content. This keeps quality high and made sure the feature reflected our standards, not just a machine output. And that maintains trust, I think, both across all of our teams, but really ultimately trust with our readers. We then launched a test. So it was a clean A/B test. Half of users saw summaries, which you see on the right, and half did not. We tracked traditional engagement metrics being time on page and articles per session. And our goal here wasn't necessarily to find dramatic lifts in a huge success story. It was really to observe. Are summaries working the way we hoped? Are they hurting anything? So what did we see? There was no real drop in engagement. Readers who saw summaries stayed just as long and often explored just as much as those who didn't. So the kind of fear that some, including myself, had didn't necessarily appear. And with this in mind, we saw a path forward, a really flexible path forward that really just opened up another series of questions around what is the real value to readers for the AI summaries. The A/B test that we just walked through wasn't necessarily designed to capture all the means of value, especially since users don't have an interaction point with the summaries. So on the summaries and the visuals that you saw on the previous slide, you'll notice that there's no click, there's no action, or any other indicator that we could potentially measure as an additional form of engagement. But of course, those type of traditional engagement metrics only tell part of the story because not all value can be measured by time spent. So we kept going. We talked to readers to better understand the value AI summaries could bring. We talked to readers, both subscribers and non-subscribers, to understand the value that these bring and what role these summaries really play. And what we heard is that many readers found that the AI-powered summaries were additive to the experience. So first and foremost, summaries were acting as a guide for some stories. Think about the grounding overview or the table of contents of a book, especially on some of our dense or complex story. Think, as a user, help me get oriented so that I'm best able to consume and retain the content. The second is that they helped users gauge interest. So decide what to read and what to skip, empowering users with more information in how best to spend their time. So think, as a user, help me decide whether this is the story for me up front so that I don't get 2 paragraphs in and decide it's not the right story for me. Lastly, they allow users to get more in the same amount of time. So think, as a user, help me digest as much complex information as possible in the same amount of time so that I'm smarter. This was an interesting distinction with our users who are busy professionals. They didn't necessarily want to spend less time with us or as a time saver, but they wanted to consume more. It's definitely an important nuance and one that we've heard echoed in previous research around content density. Our readers, of course, are people. They're busy professionals, they're investors, they're decision makers, people with high expectations and limited time. So behind every click or scroll is one of them with needs, goals, and habits. And here's some of what they told us specifically about these summaries. This is a very positive feature. Using AI to improve the reader's experience, it is always welcome, but I still expect the feature to keep the substance and the quality of the information. It offers a little extra information to decide whether to read the article in full. This would likely influence my make or break decision on whether to read. Obviously, seeing 1 or 2 really bad summaries would shift my opinion. I think it would help me spend less time on articles I don't have a ton of interest in. So as you can see, these responses weren't passive approval, they were active validation. These users weren't asking for less journalism, they were asking for smarter access to it. So summaries didn't erode trust, they actually earned it by respecting our readers' time and judgment. And once we saw that clearly, it really changed how we thought about the role these tools could play, not just in engagement, but really in a long-term value. Summaries, they offer more than just convenience. They help readers cover more ground. They surface value faster, and they make dense or developing stories easier to approach. And even if a given feature is used by a portion of the audience and not everyone, for those who use it, the value is so high. And this is the direction of our digital products overall. We want to make sure that we're offering tools that serve different needs for different users or the same user on different days and at different times. One size does not fit all anymore. Some users want clarity, others want depth, sometimes the same user at different points throughout their day, and we can serve both. So we're refining how summaries appear. We're experimenting with the placement. We are thinking through personalization and adding new formats. And we're extending them into places where clarity and context can help the user. All, of course, while applying the same principles that we've discussed: thoughtful design, editorial oversight, and real world testing to these and also other AI assisted features. On this screen, you can see one of the next tests that is live as we speak. This is a small design refinement along with the ability for users to close and or open the summary itself on the article page. So we'll be testing the default state along with these two options: the left, a default open, and the right, a default close. So I'll leave you with this. Where are you holding back? Not because the idea is weak, but because the unknown might feel too risky. What assumptions in your work are you waiting to be tested? If there's one thing this process reminded us, it's that progress doesn't come from playing it safe. It comes from asking bold questions, testing them thoughtfully, and listening to readers, and being open to surprising and sometimes even better than expected outcomes. Thank you.